easy. Now, what about the standard deviation of two variables? Okay. What if I wanted to add two standard deviations? You can't. You can never, ever do anything to standard deviations. They're sacred. You can't add them together. Convert them to variances and then follow the rules. Now, these rules for variances of adding or subtracting two variances only work if the variables are independent. Okay. Again, if knowing the value of X does not help us predict the value of Y, if the two events are independent, as we discussed at length in chapter 5, then these two following rules apply. So what if I want to add two standard deviations? You can't. You're not allowed to add standard deviations. What if I want to add two variances together? So the variance of X plus Y. Cool, go ahead and add them together, no problems. And then to find the standard deviation of two values added together, just take the square root of their sum of their variances. So if you want to add two standard deviations, you can't directly, but you can find the answer by converting those standard deviations into variances and then converting them back to standard deviations. So the rules for variances state you want to add two variances, great. You want to add two standard deviations? You're not allowed to add standard deviations. You must convert them into a variance, then follow the rules for variances, and then convert them back to standard deviations. So if I want to find the standard deviation of two values added together, I converted them to variances, I followed the rules for variances, and then I took the square root of those values to put them back into a standard deviation. Now, what if I want to subtract two standard deviations? Well, I can't. Remember, standard deviations are sacred. You cannot do anything to standard deviations. You must convert them to variances, then follow the rules for variances and convert it back to standard deviations. So if I want to subtract two variances, this is where the rule gets kind of weird. I want to subtract two variances. However, I add them to get the answer. Seems kind of weird. We're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of why this works, but basically what we're doing is we're looking at a distance. We're measuring a distance, how far away things are. And negative values don't describe distances. You can't say I'm -5 feet tall. I live -6 miles away from school. It doesn't make any sense. So the reason that if we want to subtract two variances, we actually add them is it's because we're looking at distances. And it doesn't make sense to have negative values to describe a distance between two things. So if we want to subtract two variances, add them together. Remember, I'm really care about the standard deviation. I shouldn't say I really care about it, but that's the one that I use to describe the spread most often. And a variance is a description of spread. Remember that they are related to each other and that the standard deviation is simply the square root of the variance. It's like its little brother. Okay, so if I want to subtract two standard deviations, I can't, but I can get the answer by converting them to variances, following the rules of variances, and then converting them back into a standard deviation. So those are the rules for means and the rules for variances. Might be a little confusing at first, but as we work with this and start to really dig in and see what's happening, I think you're going to see that it's not as scary as these formulas really look.